Mr Chair, and it's a pleasure to speak in this debate. I rise to speak in support of Amendment 53 this evening, which I hope will encourage the Government to bring some rigour and meaning to its rhetoric of levelling up and the use of taxpayers' money. Now, in a budget which confirmed £17 billion of spending cuts relative to March 2020 plans, the Chancellor's decision to announce the super deduction, equivalent to foregoing approximately 20% of the UK's corporation tax revenues, was certainly a bold one, particularly as the Financial Secretary to the Treasury had noted in November 2020 that the existing annual investment allowance already covers 99% of all UK businesses. Now, the House has already heard this evening that the super deduction is a major tax break for the top 1% of UK businesses, and we've also heard many concerns that it's a blunt tool in need of significant refinement if its perceived benefits will be targeted to those in greatest need of support. But I'd also like to point to concerns that the super deduction will disproportionately benefit London and the south east of England, and that it flies in the face of the government's own commitment to level up the UK economy. I'd like to draw the House's attention to findings by the Centre for Progressive Policy, which has calculated that while the super deduction could amount to a tax break worth up to £513 per London resident, it would only be worth half as much in Wales, whose sum benefit is second lowest of the UK nations and regions, with only Northern Ireland benefiting less on this measure. Now, I'm afraid I disagree with other honourable members who have suggested this evening that the super deduction might, on the contrary, actually benefit and address this regional inequality. My fear is the opposite, is that the super deduction will at best lock in existing regional inequalities and at worst exacerbate rather than address the UK's geographic economic imbalance. Now, that is why Plaid Cymru wishes to amend the bill to require that the Chancellor considers the impact and geographical extent of the super deduction across all the UK's nations and regions, and would support the calls made by other honourable members this evening that measures should be introduced to establish a deeper evidence base for these changes. Similarly, given the urgent need for climate action and the retooling of the economy for a net zero future, this amendment also requires the UK Government to consider the super deduction's impact on efforts to mitigate climate change. Now, I hope the Government will incorporate guarantees such as these into the bill to ensure that we truly do rebuild back better from the pandemic, rather than resuscitate the UK's deeply flawed pre-pandemic economy. Mr Chair, to conclude, failure to do so would make clear that its rhetoric of support for all nations, to the levelling up agenda and to climate action are no more than fine words and lofty intentions.